Welcome back, I'm Sonia. Susie sat down beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. It's okay to be scared, Andrea. This is a big decision, and it's not one you have to make overnight. But remember, you're not alone in this. I'm here for you, no matter what you decide. Andrea leaned into her friend's comforting embrace, feeling a mixture of relief and despair. She knew she couldn't avoid the decision forever, but she also knew that rushing into it would only make things worse. For now, all she could do was wait, think, and hope that somehow, the path forward would become clear. The day of the public announcement arrived, and there was a palpable sense of anticipation throughout the country. The news that Prince Raj and Princess Indara were going to address the nation had already spread, and people gathered in their homes, in the streets, and in front of large screens to hear what the young royals had to say. The palace courtyard, where the announcement was to be made, was filled with dignitaries, members of the press, and curious onlookers. The atmosphere was tense but expectant. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the assembled crowd. Raj and Indara stood side by side on a grand balcony overlooking the courtyard. Both were dressed impeccably, with Raj in traditional royal attire and Indara in a beautiful sari that reflected her heritage. Despite the gravity of the situation, they both exuded calm and dignity, a testament to the difficult journey they had undertaken to reach this point. King Devendra and Queen Anisha, along with Maharaja Vikram and Maharani Laila, stood a few steps behind them, offering their support in a silent show of unity. Raj stepped forward first, his voice steady as he addressed the gathered crowd. People of our beloved nation, thank you for coming today and for your continued loyalty and support. We stand before you not just as members of the royal family, but as individuals who have a deep commitment to the future of our nation. There was a respectful silence as Raj continued, his gaze sweeping over the attentive crowd. As you know, for many years, it has been planned that Princess Indara and I would marry, uniting our families and continuing a long-standing tradition. However, after much reflection and heartfelt discussions, both Indara and I have come to the conclusion that our paths in life must take a different direction. There was a murmur of surprise among the crowd, but Raj's calm and confident demeanor reassured them. This decision was not made lightly. We have the deepest respect for one another, and it is with that respect that we have decided to end our engagement. Indara stepped forward, her voice clear and warm. We understand that this may come as a surprise, and we know how much this engagement has meant to our families and to all of you. But we also believe that the strength of our nation lies in our ability to evolve, to adapt, and to embrace change when it is necessary. She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. Raj and I are committed to help our nation and our people with honor and integrity. We believe that by making this decision, we are staying true to ourselves and to the values that have always guided our actions. We ask for your understanding and your support as we move forward in our separate paths, but always with the best interests of our country at heart. The crowd listened intently, and as the announcement continued, the initial murmurs of surprise began to give way to a sense of acceptance. There was something about the way Raj and Indara spoke honestly, openly, and with a deep sense of responsibility that resonated with the people. Raj concluded the announcement, his voice filled with determination. We have faith that our nation will continue to thrive, and that together, we can build a future where both tradition and modernity coexist. We are confident that this decision, while difficult, is the right one for all of us. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the crowd began to clap. The applause grew louder, building into a wave of support that washed over the courtyard. It was a clear sign that the people had accepted the decision, that they trusted their leaders to guide them wisely, even in times of change. Raj and Indara exchanged a relieved glance, grateful that their honesty had been met with understanding. Behind them, their parents nodded in approval, the tension in their faces easing as they saw the public's reaction. The announcement had gone as well as they could have hoped, and as Raj and Indara stepped back from the balcony, they knew that they had taken the first step toward a new chapter in their lives, one that would be defined by their choices, their courage, and their commitment to serving their people with integrity and love. Back at the hotel, Andrea and Susie sat together in their room, their eyes glued to the television screen. The announcement from Raj and Indara was being broadcast live. Andrea and Susie were relieved to have the English subtitles, allowing them to fully grasp the nuances of the conversation. And the significance of the moment was not lost on either of them. The room was quiet, save for the steady voice of Raj as he addressed the kingdom, his words carrying a weight that Andrea could feel deep in her chest. As they listened, Andrea's emotions were a turbulent mix of relief, admiration, and uncertainty. She watched Raj speak with such calm confidence, his words measured and sincere. It was clear to her that this decision had been incredibly difficult, not just for Raj but for everyone involved. Yet, there he was, standing before his people, making a choice that would change the course of his life. Susie glanced over at Andrea, sensing her friend's turmoil. "It sounds like he's really doing it," Susie said softly. "He's ending the engagement." Andrea nodded, her eyes never leaving the screen. "Yeah, it's real now. He actually went through with it." As Raj and Indara continued their announcement, Andrea couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt mixed with gratitude. Guilt for being the catalyst for such a monumental change, and gratitude for Raj's willingness to take this step for the sake of their relationship, whatever that might mean now. When Indara spoke, her voice calm and dignified, Andrea felt a deep respect for the woman she had never met. Indara had handled the situation with grace, and there was no bitterness in her tone, only a sense of mutual respect and understanding. It made Andrea's heart ache a little, knowing that Indara was also making a sacrifice, choosing a path that would lead her away from the life she had been raised to expect. As the announcement concluded and the crowd's applause filled the room, Susie reached out and placed a comforting hand on Andrea's arm. "That was intense," Susie said quietly. "But it seems like the people are accepting it. They're supporting him." Andrea let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Yeah, it seems that way. I can't believe this is happening. It's all so much." Susie squeezed her arm gently. "I know, Andrea. But you've got to give yourself some credit too. This isn't just about Raj making a choice, it's about you deciding what you want as well. He's done his part, but now it's your turn to figure out what's best for you." Andrea nodded, her thoughts still swirling. "I know. I just need time to think, to process everything. Seeing him up there, making that announcement, it's just so overwhelming. I care about him, Susie, but I'm terrified of what all this could mean for both of us." Susie smiled gently. "You're allowed to be scared, Andrea. This is a huge decision, and it's okay to take your time. Just remember that whatever you decide, it has to be right for you." Andrea leaned back on the bed, closing her eyes for a moment as she tried to calm the storm of emotions inside her. "I know. I just wish it wasn't so complicated." "It wouldn't be life if it wasn't complicated," Susie said with a light chuckle. "But whatever happens, I'll be here for you, okay?" Andrea opened her eyes and gave Susie a grateful smile. "Thanks, Susie. I don't know what I'd do without you." As the television continued to replay moments from the announcement, Andrea found herself lost in thought. She knew that the decision she had to make was one that would define not only her future but Raj's as well. And though the path ahead was uncertain, she was determined to make a choice that she could live with, one that would honor both her feelings and the reality of their situation. Raj sat in the quiet of his apartment, his thoughts still lingering on the public announcement. The evening had been monumental, and now that it was over, he felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. He had done what he knew was right, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead with Andrea weighed heavily on his mind. Onik entered the room, carrying a tray with tea and snacks. He placed it on the table before sitting across from Raj. There was a moment of silence as they both reflected on the day's events. Onik broke the silence, his voice filled with a mix of admiration and concern. "Raj, I have to say, I'm impressed by your courage today. It's not easy to stand before the entire kingdom and break off an engagement that's been in place for years. You did what many wouldn't have the strength to do." Raj offered a small, appreciative smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thank you, Onik. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I couldn't go on living a lie, pretending to be something I'm not." Onik nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You've always been true to yourself, Raj, and that's something I've always respected about you. But I can't help but worry. Andrea still hasn't given you an answer, and her time here is running out. What if she decides to leave without committing to you? After everything you've done, I just hope it hasn't been in vain." Raj leaned back in his chair, a pensive look on his face. "I know, Onik. It's something I've been thinking about constantly. But the truth is, I can't force her to make a decision. This has to be her choice, and whatever she decides, I'll have to respect it." Onik studied Raj's face, seeing the weight of uncertainty in his friend's eyes. "But what if she chooses to leave, Raj? What will you do then?" Raj sighed, running a hand through his hair. "If she leaves, then I'll have to accept it. As much as it would hurt, I can't hold it against her. She didn't ask for any of this. And besides, I didn't love Indara, and she didn't love me. Ending that engagement was something I had to do for myself, regardless of what happens with Andrea." Onik nodded, understanding the depth of Raj's resolve. "You're right, Raj. You did what you had to do for your own happiness, and that's important. But I can see how much you care about Andrea. I just hope she sees that too." Raj gave a small, bittersweet smile. "I hope so too, Onik. But whatever happens, I have to believe that it will work out the way it's meant to. I've made my choice, and now it's up to Andrea to make hers." Onik leaned forward, his tone softening. "Raj, you've done everything you can. You've been honest with her, you've shown her how much she means to you. Now, all you can do is wait and hope that she sees the same future with you that you see with her." Raj nodded, his gaze distant as he stared out the window. "Yes, now all I can do is wait. But no matter what, I know that I've done the right thing. For me, for Indara, and hopefully, for Andrea." The room fell into a companionable silence, both men lost in their own thoughts. Raj knew that the hardest part was still ahead, waiting for Andrea's decision, not knowing what the future held. But for now, he found some comfort in the fact that he had stayed true to himself, even when the path was uncertain. Indara sat in the privacy of her own chambers, her heart still racing from the events of the day. The public announcement had been a pivotal moment in her life, and now that it was over, she felt a mixture of relief and nervous anticipation. The weight of the engagement with Raj had been lifted, but now a new chapter was beginning, one that involved the man she truly loved. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. After a few rings, the familiar voice on the other end answered, filled with warmth and concern. "Indara, I saw the announcement," the man said, his tone steady but tinged with worry. "Are you all right?" Indara smiled, even though she knew he couldn't see it. "Yes, I'm fine. It was difficult, but it had to be done. Raj and I both knew that we couldn't go through with the marriage. We've always respected each other, but our hearts were never truly in it." "I'm proud of you," he replied softly. "It takes a lot of courage to stand up for what you believe in, especially when so much is at stake." Indara felt a wave of emotion wash over her. His support meant everything to her. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without knowing that you were there for me. I wanted to tell you that I've spoken with my parents. They know about us, and while they understand, they've asked me to wait a little before introducing you formally. They think it's best to give it some time, especially since the announcement was just made." There was a brief pause on the other end before he responded, his voice calm and understanding. "I can wait, Indara. I've waited this long, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes for us to be together openly. I'm just glad that the engagement is over, and that you're finally free to follow your heart." Indara felt a sense of peace settle over her. Knowing that he was patient and supportive made the uncertainty of the situation more bearable. "I appreciate that more than you know. My parents are still adjusting to the idea, and I want to make sure that when the time comes for you to meet them, everything goes as smoothly as possible." "I understand," he said gently. "Your parents need time, and that's okay. I'm not going anywhere, Indara. I'll be here, waiting for you whenever you're ready." Indara's heart swelled with affection for him. His unwavering support had been her anchor through the storm of emotions she had faced. "Thank you for being so patient. I know this isn't easy, but I promise you, we'll get through it together." "I believe that, too," he replied with quiet confidence. "You've already taken the hardest step, and now it's just a matter of time. When your family is ready, I'll be there to meet them, and we'll face whatever comes next together." Indara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "I'm looking forward to that day. For now, let's just take things one step at a time. I'll keep you updated, and we'll figure out the best way to move forward." "Of course," he said, his voice full of reassurance. "I'm here whenever you need me." As they ended the call, Indara felt a sense of calm settle over her. The announcement had been a major turning point, and while the future was still uncertain, she knew she wasn't facing it alone. The man she loved was by her side, willing to wait and support her through the challenges that lay ahead. For now, she would focus on helping her family come to terms with the changes, and when the time was right, she would introduce them to the man who had captured her heart. It wouldn't be easy, but with love and patience, she believed they could create a future where they could be together, openly and without fear. Back at his parents' house, Queen Anisha sat in the grand sitting room, her thoughts preoccupied with the recent events. The public announcement had been a turning point for their family, and while she was still coming to terms with the decision, there was one lingering question on her mind: who was the woman that had captured her son's heart? Unable to resist the urge to find out more, she picked up the phone and dialed Raj's number. The line rang a few times before Raj's familiar voice came through. "Hello, Mother," Raj greeted her warmly, though there was an underlying tension in his tone. "Raj, my dear," Queen Anisha began, her voice gentle but with a hint of curiosity, "I wanted to ask you something. Now that the engagement with Indara is over, when do you plan to introduce us to Andrea? I would very much like to meet the woman who means so much to you." Raj's heart skipped a beat at his mother's question. He had been hoping for more time, more certainty, before bringing Andrea into the family fold. He glanced at Onik, who was sitting across from him, immediately picking up on Raj's concern. Raj took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. Mother, I don't know when that will be. Things are still complicated. I haven't spoken to Andrea about it yet. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and Raj could almost hear the wheels turning in his mother's mind. Complicated? Raj, what do you mean? You've made such a significant decision, and now you're telling me you haven't even discussed meeting your family with her? Raj closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his mother's expectations. It's not that simple, Mother. Andrea is still trying to process everything. I don't want to rush her or put any more pressure on her than she's already feeling. Queen Anisha sighed softly, a mix of concern and disappointment in her voice. Raj, I understand that this has been difficult for everyone involved, but if you're serious about this woman, she needs to meet your family. We need to know who she is, where she comes from, what her intentions are. You know how important that is, especially given the situation. Raj nodded, even though his mother couldn't see him. I know, Mother. And I promise you, when the time is right, you'll meet her. But I need to give her space to make her own decisions. I can't force this.